Welcome to Stampscapes. We're going to do a couple scenes here, a couple identical scenes, but on two different papers by Deanna Tubb-Sedillo. These are pre-printed backgrounds that you can utilize for some quick applications here. All right, so we want to stamp some things on over the top of it, but we also want to utilize these as kind of a base and to also bring in the types of effects that will anchor the things that we stamp into here to integrate it into the scene. And I'll show you what I mean when we get to that point. I really like this composition, and while I have the stamps out, I'm going to do something like this. It's going to be a little bit different because just of the scale of this. I believe this is a quarter page, 4¼ by 5½, I think. All right, now the ink that I'm going to try is this hybrid black ink. I've really enjoyed using this. I've had it for a little while now, and I really like the density of it. It's really dark and kind of thick because it's a hybrid ink, so it has a little bit of that black pigment ink in it, plus the kind of the penetration power of dye-based inks. So you get a little bit of the best of both worlds in some ways with it. I hadn't really thought about it like that before, but I believe that's what's happening. You know, you get little bit of the surface-oriented nature of it, where dye-based inks alone, they absorb completely, into the paper. They work by staining, okay? All right, so the paper that I've chosen here, the background paper, has this kind of open area on the bottom, okay? So I can't do these real open styles of designs if I stamp it right over the top of that, but it had this area of openness down here. What I mean by openness is just this lighter area down below like that. Okay, because if I stamp this up here, all those colors, of course, are going to show right through that. All right. Now I have some of it in here, but I'm just going to utilize that as shadow. Okay. All right. So we have that, and let's do a little bit of a top portion of this slope right here with the snow texture. Okay, like that and like that. Now on this one here, I don't have to work, I'm not working around a moon, so I'm just going to add this in like so. I guess we can just stamp out everything in here right now. It certainly does make for a quick scene, doesn't it? Or I should say a quick foundation, at least. Maybe this one, a little bit of the horse's head, I think, is going to go into the moon. Yeah, it's almost like kissing the moon. Kind of interesting. I feel like I'm missing something. This is just like going too fast. All right, and a little bit about my tiny rock small. It's one of my more useful stamps in terms of like being completely universal, because it's a textural addition to the pieces that, I don't know. After I add it in, it's like, oh, it really needed that. All right, so we have those objects stamped out. Let's get a little bit of this foreground winter brush in here. So like that down there, it really kind of anchors that down, doesn't it? Let's mask off a little bit and get another half portion of this in here. This is how you really make a lot of your stamps a lot more universal, as you use portions of them. Okay, so I try to design all Stampscape stamps with the idea of partials to be stamped out. So a lot of times people design a stamp, but they don't consider it in terms of partials. Okay. I look at all the negative space on mine to make it look interesting just in a small section of it, but I also want it very interesting as a whole too. And the negative space, is the important thing. That's one of the things that you learn in rendering classes in college is that, we're always drawing certain things with a pen, but it's always the space in between that has to look interesting, and that's the other complete half of a design that you want to consider when you're looking at a design and figuring out kind of how to utilize it when it comes to stamping. So when you get your designs, you can take a look at it and kind of figure out, okay, let's see this area right here. You don't always have to utilize the whole thing. Some people think, wait a minute, I'm doing a quarter-page card, so I can't stamp two of these because they're not going to fit. But see, if I stamp this over here, I'm only utilizing like, I don't know, maybe like a third of it or so. And that's the way that I am looking at the design. I'm looking at it in terms of partials, okay? So your designs, your Stampscapes designs, have been designed to be used in their entirety to try to make some kind of interesting statement. They're designed to be utilized with their sibling designs, designed to be used in repetition, and with other companies' stamps too, because I see them as being useful as backgrounds. Okay, so see there's just a little portion of it right there. And it frames off each side. See this right here? I'm kind of planting my winter ash in the snow by masking out some of the bottom portion. Okay. We won't have to do too much more to this, but I'll show you how we'll anchor everything down a little bit more. All right, so we have our background established with the papers, midground and foreground right here. Okay, now let's show you how to integrate these a little bit more. Okay, so we have blue backgrounds, okay, and we're going to utilize kind of the same colors that were utilized in the background, okay, but we'll use them strategically now. So we have our really cool pastel backgrounds pre-printed, and I'm going to go in, I'm going to start off with the lighter tones right here, and it's just kind of what I did on the holographic cardstock as well, okay? And that's, we'll start coloring in and making darker the darker areas of the design, okay? So you can see this rock is darker. And it's not that you want, oh, I want blue rocks or anything like this. This is the starting point, okay? You see this in the water where it's a little bit darker. Now you don't have to color it completely uniformly, but you do want to get a little bit of a kind of an enhanced shading scheme. So I start you off with tones that are already in the design. I have these shaded areas like this, okay? So I'm just going in and watch how this kind of develops that shadow a little bit more. Okay, see that like that? Doesn't it start to really kind of bring out the forms really nicely? Here's a little bit of a dark area right here. And I'm just kind of reinforcing with some additional shadow work. All right, now here's where the trees come into play. Now, in here, there's not really a strong source of light. It's diffused throughout the sky. So I'm just going to put this general type of shadow at the base of the tree. Okay, so I have this coming out. Now, this is a really light blue, but I'll develop it through my colors. Okay, like this. So I've anchored it down a little bit more like that. But again, nothing like super strong right now because this is the lightest kind of shading color that we'll use. And we'll get into our darker ones though. All right. Okay, let's go into this one. This one's a little bit darker inherently, so we'll see if this will show up in here, and well, it does a little bit. I used a little bit of a smaller portion of the snowy brook on this one just because I was working around this moon right here. In this case, it's either a moonrise or the moon setting. I think a moonrise sounds kind of more interesting, so we'll call it a moonrise. Kind of creating a little bit of a shadow underneath that horse. All right, so we have our first color with this one right here. Now let's develop these shadows a little bit more. See how dark it is up here? We'll kind of get that same level of shading within our forms, okay? All right, so I'm kind of adding this roughly where I added the lighter blue. I'll use a little bit less of this one though, so that we'll get a transitioning kind of shadow scheme right here. So see, I kind of went from here to about right here with the lighter one. So the darker one, I'm just doing a little bit less like that, so we get this transition right here, okay? See this right here? So you go a little bit more sparingly with it. Now this is the shadow from the tree. All right. Kind of looking like the, hopefully it looks like the imagery is a little bit more anchored into the scene though. Let's go with a little bit of a stronger horizon right in here. Okay. Yeah, like that. See how this kind of, this color, the background color, and utilizing those same colors really integrates the piece. Now, I mean, we could do other things. I mean, if I wanted to do a moonrise over a brighter meadow, greens or something like that, you can do that. You can bring whatever colors you might say. Oh, well, if that's a moon, you wouldn't see all those greens. Yeah, but who cares? You know what I mean? It just depends on what looks best. I mean, we can be referencing something, and if we're going to call it a moonlit night, or a cold, something, I don't know, whatever, and you really want to reference kind of reality, you can do that. But the scenes that we're doing are kind of more fantasy than anything. So it is fully, fine to, take a lot of artistic license. After all, we are crafters and stampers. I don't think we want to be bound by something that maybe a camera can do better, which is capture something maybe that's more representative of, I don't know, whatever reality. All right, so that is that right there. Now, let's go in, and I like adding these little blossoms in my trees. I think it kind of adds a nice little touch. Now, this one right here, I don't know if I'm going to do that. This one's pretty dark up there, and that would really stand out quite a bit. Let's see how it looks on this one, though. 3 millimeter acrylic paint pen. I call these snow blossoms. Probably not something you'd see in the middle of winter, but I think it looks really cool. Kind of brings it to life, doesn't it? All right, I'm going to bring in some of this, a little bit of highlighting down in my snowy areas. You'll have a little bit more of that snow kind of shimmer and light. You got to be careful with this one because the paper that I'm using, the background, there's not really very much white in there, which means that you wouldn't really have too much of that reflected white light down in your lower area like this. So I'm not going to go too light on any of the the highlighting here, which again is representative of reflected light. Now again, you say, hey Kevin, you said we don't have to kind of abide by kind of natural convention. Well, it kind of stands out a little bit too much. if you have something that's really light down in here, but there's none of it anywhere else. So that's the thing for me. I think these look good like that, but you know, I don't want like highlights that are lighter than the surrounding light, in other words. Or at least too much, okay? See that like that? And let's try some of it here. Now, on this one, we do have that, you know, bright moonlit element in here, so I can go quite a bit lighter with this on my highlights. Because we have a very light source that's right in the scene. And I'm kind of applying it where there's lighter areas on the designs, where I shaded where it was darker, but see these lighter areas on top of these rocks and things like that? Those are lighter, so I'm making them even lighter. So the darker things, you make it darker with your shading, and the lighter things, you kind of make a little bit lighter, or at least on the top of them, to make those areas seem a little bit more rounded. I'm kind of using this little marker like a little brush for the first time. Looks pretty good. Okay. Yeah. Well, this pen right here can really be used like a brush, kind of. I know they call these acrylic paint, I don't know, brush markers, but this is a whole new kind of way to use it for me. And this real kind of feathery kind of look right there. So then I'm kind of going with the contours of the snow. Let me try that new development here. Now, as this paint kind of dries, it gets darker, it gets more transparent, which isn't a terribly bad thing, because it kind of integrates with the scene a little bit more. Sometimes I do want it to, I wish it did remain lighter, but in something like doing this right here where I'm kind of experimenting, it's not bad that it kind of, you know, darkens a little bit, just in case I didn't apply something in, you know, in a less, if I applied it in a less than graceful manner, which is entirely possible, kind of playing around with something for the first time in a certain way. All right, that looks better with that brushy kind of stroke like that. Okay, so we have two different pieces right here. Maybe it's the rider goes out and rides, goes for a midnight ride. And this is like, maybe this is like winter and this is like, I don't know, getting a little closer to spring or something like that with those blossoms up there. But see how these pieces really sit into the scene a little bit more when you add that shading into them like that and then highlighting. So it's pretty easy. You add white, black, and then whatever kind of color scheme is working in there. This one has a little bit more of a warmer kind of bluish tinge, so that pen like that worked, pencil worked really good because this has a little bit of a warmish kind of turquoise-ish tinge to it. But it makes for some kind of fun, foundations to work with when you're working with any type of, kind of pre-printed background like this. Now, these ones are very specific in terms of, what types of imagery you can use on them. But if you have some kind of open spots, like on this one right here, I mean, if I stamp this portion right down in here, I'd have this real dark area working through there. You can probably work it, but if I did this one, I'd probably have this, like this in here, okay? And then instead of using the blue tones, you kind of pick out some orange, red, and like a brownish tinge with some black in here to utilize in your shadow work down here. This one would be a fun one to do right here. But so just consider your pieces. This one right here is probably better with more of your bolder silhouette styles of images over the top of it because of all the darker areas in there. On this one right here, I kind of see a beach or something like that with maybe the baby sea turtles walking out to the end of the ocean or something like that. Okay, so anyways, hope you enjoyed it. Drop me a note if you have any questions on this. Check out Deanna Tubb-Sedillo's pieces on Facebook or Instagram, or check out her pre-printed papers. And if you have any questions about those, you can direct those comments, questions to her. All right, thanks for watching.